Hey, it's Pat here, and today we're going to talk about the truth behind traditional media. Traditional media being things like getting on television, getting into magazines, getting in the newspaper. How much does this actually matter for your business and your brand? And is this something that actually we should be looking to do? So I'm going to share a lot in and around that with you today because there are potentially some uncovered gems within the world right now specifically that we could do to grow our business. And there's also some things I want to talk about related to this that I want you to look out for too. How's that for a hook? Anyway, welcome in everybody. Thank you so much for joining me today. This is day 216 of the income stream, 216 days in a row. How crazy is that? I'm very grateful for your time and attention here today. We're going to spend about an hour together talking about this, hanging out with each other, communicating amongst each other, and I'm just very grateful for you here. Let's have a good show. Thanks, and welcome to the income stream.
This is the income stream to help you achieve your dream, all while we keep it clean. This is the income stream. It's the kind of show where you can come and go, but then you leave inspired with no fee required. The income stream with Pat Flynn.
Hey, all, thanks again so much for being here. If you're here live with me today, I come in live every single morning. Make sure that you hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, because we got a lot more content coming your way. We're going to go to 365 in a row. I don't know what's going to happen after that, but we're going to have some fun. My thoughts are that we're going to get to 365, and then I'm going to be like, oh, we're so close to 400, we might as well go 400. And then, hey, we're at 400, we might as well get to 500. Hey, we're at 500, we might as well get to 1,000. And then all of a sudden, I'm like 90 years old, streaming, and I have a world record. So we'll see what happens, but I don't know if we're going to get to that point. But if you're here live today, thank you, and say hello to your friends here in the chat. If you're watching the replay, hashtag team replay in the comments section. To start off, I wanted to share a video that my videographer Caleb put together. Thanks for the likes, by the way. We already have 25, which is fantastic. We have a new video that we're going to pop onto patflynn.com at some point. This is a video that we are using specifically to attract more media. Now, I did not get what I expected out of the results of getting onto television, but I've been on television a few times. In fact, on Monday, you saw me, if you were here, end a little bit early. And because I ended a little bit early, I had to go to a television interview on the news in Arizona. Hey, Archer, what's up? Thank you so much. What's up, everyone, on PTO so I can listen live. Yay! Sweet. Dude, it's good to see you here. Thank you so much. And let's play this video for you.
After he was laid off during a recession, Pat Flynn had to do something.
Today, he owns several successful online businesses. First things first, what should my first steps be if I find myself in this situation?
You don't have to create the next Uber or eBay or big giant. Hold up, it's going really fast, and it's because I put it at 1.5 speed when I was doing something yesterday. Let's start that again, because that was like kind of crazy.
Off during a recession, Pat Flynn had to do something.
Today, he owns several successful online businesses. First things first, what should my first steps be if I find myself in this situation?
You don't have to create the next Uber or eBay or big giant company. You just need to actually be helpful for even a few people to help get your legs going and up and running again. But I had to change my mindset and think about, okay, well, what does this make possible? And that's really the first question that we need to ask ourselves during these times, especially if you've gotten laid off or furloughed recently. What does this make possible? And for me, getting laid off really opened up my eyes to some opportunities that were always right there in front of me.
Explain what entrepreneur means, because I think that sometimes, academics has its place for sure. I'm not saying it doesn't, but a lot of times when you ask people what an entrepreneur is, they have trouble describing it.
For me, an entrepreneur, simply a problem solver. Somebody who can discover for a certain group of people what their biggest pains and problems are, and finding creative ways to do it.
So you go on YouTube just about every day to answer people's questions. What are they asking you mostly?
All kinds of things. So I've been going live on YouTube every day on my channel to help people in need right now. This is day 4, day 11, 37th day going live straight, day 74, day 7,750.
Is that a stormtrooper helmet over there in the corner?
This is a stormtrooper helmet. You'll see a Mandalorian helmet there. I'm a big Star Wars nerd.
Well, I love it, Pat. That means we can get along. Okay, so let's talk about these myths that people tell themselves. What's the first one?
Yeah, I mean, I think overall, just the big first myth about productivity and balancing is that we feel like we have to try and shoot for perfect balance.
Pat, we are eager to hear what you have to say.
Thank you, and I appreciate the time here. You know, working with kids at home is very difficult. Kids are unpredictable, and especially now that there's no camps and swim classes and stuff, we have to really work around this.
We don't necessarily need a solution right now. We just need to know that we're going to be okay. And if you're a part of the Team Flynn community, that's what I want you to know.
I think people can learn a lot from the advice you've given us.
Pat, thank you very much.
Thank you so much. All right, so there was a little teaser reel of some media spots that I've had recently, just within the past 3 months, in fact. I want to give a big shout out and offer a lot of credit to Brittany Lynn, who is my PR person. I hired her agency recently, and she's just done an incredible job helping me find stories that I might have that would be relevant for today. So if you want to check her out, Brittany L. Lynn, L-Y-N-N, and you can hear her on last week's episode of the Smart Passive Income podcast. It's been cool. It's been really cool to get on television, and she's also gotten me some spots on Entrepreneur magazine and Forbes and things like that. So I want to talk about some of the truth here behind media. I think that there's a couple misconceptions or myths around this thing. So let me start by first saying that I think a lot of us don't believe that we have a story that is even relevant or would be worthy of TV time or a magazine. And I don't think that's true for most people, in fact. I think that we all have some sort of story. It's just, what is the story? How is it relevant right now? That's the first thing that Brittany taught me about what matters in PR and traditional media like this, is stories that are relevant to the times and things that you could share about your life, about your business, and what have you, that makes sense for now always work best. There are other tools like Haro Help a Reporter Out, which helps you understand and get a feed of information from journalists in terms of what are they looking for. And you might be able to pop in there and find some story within some of the inquiries that are being shared. But ideally, you'd have to have perhaps 1 to 3 different kinds of stories or relevant things that are very, very pertinent right now related to either your community or just the world at large. And it's something that takes some time for you to figure out and find. But I will say that once you find this story, it's something that a lot of newscasters and a lot of directors, decision makers at these places will hang on to. Brittany, obviously having done this for a long time for me, has been somebody who knows the sort of stories that sort of make sense. And if you want to check out her stuff, again, Brittany L. Lynn, L-Y-N-N, .com, and she has a lot of great free information on how to craft your story, how to reach out and pitch and things like that. So we're not going to get into necessarily the mechanics of pitching, but I just wanted to start off with this. We all have some stories that we could share, and the truth is, unless you pitch, you're going to get a no automatically, right? Like, the truth is, if you don't take action and actually put yourself out there and believe that you have a story that's worth sharing right now, well, nobody's going to take it, and obviously you're not even giving yourself a shot. So that's sort of step number 1, is figuring out that story. And in my case, obviously with the pandemic and myself and my story having gotten laid off in 2008, Brittany and I really pitched that part of it and how to sort of bounce back from getting laid off and furloughed, which was obviously very relevant at the start of the year here. Thanks for all the thumbs ups, by the way, and the thumbs down. They do help with the algorithm and help me get found more, so I appreciate that, and I hope we can turn that frown upside down for you and hope that you just have a better day. So I appreciate you for being here anyway. In addition, there were other stories that we pulled out. For example, the fact that I work from home with kids, and I've done that for about 10 years now. My kids are 10 and 8. We pulled that story out, and we positioned it in a way where we can offer 5 different tips related to how to work from home with kids. Because guess what? Everybody was working home with kids. I'm not known for productivity necessarily. I'm not known for being somebody who can help others manage time with their kids. I mean, I do discuss and talk about that every once in a while, but it was something that we just said, you know what, this is what we're going to talk about right now. This is the story that we're going to tell. And then we sort of started to share that and pitch people to see if they would be interested in that. Right now, the story, Beth, I know you saw this recently in Arizona on Monday. If you saw my segment, that this was not in the little clip that I just played, but The Social Dilemma came out, right? Which is a Netflix documentary about the scariness and the sort of insides of social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, etc., and how those algorithms work to just essentially please advertisers and help those companies make more money. And so there's been a lot of noise about this. It was trending for a long time. And so Brittany and I and her team decided to figure out, okay, well, how can we craft a story here? And knowing that I have kids and my kids are about the age at which they're about to go into the world and have phones. Eventually, they don't have phones yet, but they will at some point and have access to all these places. How are April and I preparing our kids for this? So we just positioned ourselves as experts with that story. Hey, here's how somebody who has been working online, who uses social media for their business, how do we train our kids or be a good example for them so that when they go into the world and use social media, how do we make sure that they're positioned in a way that's going to be favorable? Do we just cut them off completely until a certain time, or do we do some sort of training or anything like that? But anyway, that's kind of how we discussed and determined what stories that I might have, and even things that I'm not necessarily known for. It's actually something that we can sort of position ourselves as an expert for too. So that's just sort of lesson number one. The other, and there's so many of these things I'm going to share. Another truth about media is that these news spots do not send you a rush of traffic. They don't. It's not like you're going to get on the news and all of a sudden you're going to get hundreds of thousands of people flocking to your website. Sometimes we see stories of people who have been on the news or featured somewhere, and all of a sudden their servers crash and everything happens, and then like their business blows up. In most cases, from my experience with the dozen or so TV spots that I've had within the past 3 months, I haven't seen a trickle of additional traffic. I'm sure that there's traffic that comes in. In most cases, there's a very short period where I get to mention smart passive income. I've had some social media growth, but I haven't had a ton of traffic. And this is just the truth about most media like this. My Forbes articles, entrepreneurial articles, they don't really bring in a ton of traffic. They do provide a nice little backlink, which is helpful and a little bit of authority. But TV spots, you're not going to get a whole rush of traffic right away. So why do them? Why do these TV spots? Well, there's a number of different reasons to do traditional media in this way. Number one, for the idea of just authority, positioning you as an expert on a topic. This helps you build trust with your audience, right? This helps you build trust. And I love what Rob says here. This is a long play. Indeed, this is a long play. This is the idea that you're building credibility. You're building trust. You're getting people to know, like, and trust you. And obviously, you see these clips later, right? You're not watching live, and most people who watch the news live later are maybe a little bit older or in different demographics that don't necessarily fit my target audience. But at least it can get people to discover and talk. And yes, there's been a couple moments where people have emailed me saying, hey, I saw your segment. I'd love to see what we can do together. In fact, one of those led to a radio interview in another state, which was really interesting. So that was pretty cool. But other than that, it's a long-term play. You saw these clips months later, and they provide a level of authority. The fact that I was able to get on TV, the fact that I'm talking about these topics does position me as an expert. And so you can use this material in different kinds of ways. You can use it in speaking reels to help you get and book more stages. You can use it on your website in any sales pages. You can use the sort of, when you see that sort of visual of like you on one side and the news on the other side, I mean, you can't help but consider, oh, this person must be an expert. It's an authority play. It's very similar to just simply putting on a doctor's coat and some glasses. Wow, this person must know what they're talking about simply because they're wearing that coat. Now, obviously, with a news spot, we want to hear some good content. We want to feel the vibe of that person, and that's really good too. This, I imagine, can be used to potentially reach out to bigger and larger audiences. Most of the TV spots, if not all of them, that I've done so far this year. Sorry, I'm hearing a very loud plane. Hold on one sec. And that loud plane is a garbage man. So we're good. We're good. Just a garbage man. Anyway, what was I saying? So long-term play, PR, positioning yourself as an authority. You can use these things to get onto bigger stages. And this is something that Brittany and I are like hoping for. It doesn't always happen. But when you start locally, and the cool thing about it today, this is a cool thing. I really need you to pay attention to this because this is really cool. The idea that, actually I'm going to go to this camera here. The idea that local is not local anymore. What do I mean by that? I mean the idea that now that everybody's at home, newscasters are not even able to go in to the office and the studio sometimes. Now people are looking for stories and are looking worldwide, because now people are bringing themselves in on Zoom or Skype, and those are the two methods that I've been able to come on to the news, Zoom or Skype. I'll talk about the mechanics of this. I'll give you some tips in case you end up getting on TV or media. But local is, I mean, I've been on Arizona recently, Washington, Portland, Texas, even Florida. And I don't live in those states, obviously, but because everything's online now, it's just actually much easier to go and pitch and potentially get access to these different event stages, if you want to call them that, studios, when normally that wouldn't happen or you wouldn't have as much access. Now we have plenty of access, but of course, like I said earlier, unless you pitch, you're not going to get, people aren't going to newscasters unless you have a very, very top newsworthy story. You're going to have to do the work to gain attention and not the other way around, right? So let's keep talking about this. The idea, starting local, maybe somebody sees it, somebody picks it up. They all have affiliates, right? A lot of these, not affiliate marketing affiliates, but like these channels have other channels that can then kind of level up your story. They toss stories around, they like something, they share it with their bigger affiliates, and then you could potentially get on the big stage, which are places like Good Morning America, or, other places like, I don't know, Dr. Oz, if you're in the health and fitness space. I know a good friend of mine, Sean Stevenson, has been on stages like that, where it's legit like hundreds of thousands of people tuning in every single day, and it's not news, it's like a segment within a particular show, kind of like the Oprah effect. That's how Marie Forleo got started, if you didn't know that. Back in the day, she was a guest with Oprah Winfrey, and her book and all her programs just started to take off because she leveled up and got to that space, which was really cool. So very inspirational and something to aspire to, but not going to happen right away, if that makes sense. Right. Touch of focus might be good. You mean on this one? Are we good over here? Cool. Or just in general, we all need more touches of focus in our life, right? Maybe that's what you mean. Okay. Or maybe that wasn't even for me. Okay, cool. So let's continue talking about this. There's other news outlets and places that you can get access to if you don't want to get access or don't have the ability to get access to TV. We mentioned Haro, H-A-R-O, a free service that you could subscribe to where you can sign up and see all the inquiries, and even inquiries about specific niches, I think. I don't know if there's special bonuses or something if you do pay, but I have used that before, but it just was too much. There was just so many inquiries, and you got to kind of be quick. In fact, I think Brittany even offers, BrittanyLLynn.com, my PR person, even offers a service where she kind of scours Haro for you and then reaches out to you when there's something that might make sense for your story. Because that's the cool thing, that when you work with a PR person, they start to get to know who you are, they get to know your personality, they get to know what you're about, and then can kind of connect the dots for you. That's the job of an agent, right? And she's done a wonderful job of that. There are other outlets besides television. There are obviously magazines and news articles online. Entrepreneur, Forbes, and your own industry might have its own publication, which I would definitely check out. If you're, for example, in woodworking, guess what? There's so many woodworking different publications out there that you should be looking at and experiencing, and potentially even reaching out to some of the writers and editors there to make a connection. And of course, seeing if there's any way that you can insert your own story or something that you have to offer for that publication. The beauty of those kinds of things online is that those things live on, right? With the TV spot, unless I capture them, and typically you'll get access to the video replay after that you can use in any which way you want if you're on television, but a entrepreneur or Forbes article that you write or you contribute to or you are mentioned in from another journalist goes a very long way. Those things, SEO plays a role with that, search engine optimization. You might be found within the directory within those different platforms. Sometimes those articles take off, and of course you have the ability to spread virally through Instagram and Twitter and Facebook and etc. So there's a lot more opportunity, in fact, on the online world versus just like television. And let's not discount the idea and the fact that other podcasts are great platforms to potentially be a guest on. And this is sort of the highest level in terms of engagement because you have now the attention of people who have earned the trust with a particular host. You have the ability to share your voice for a much longer period of time. I mean, these TV spots are literally, I've had one of them was, it was literally 10 seconds because I went on and I was like, hey, thanks for having me here today. Here's some tips to help you with working from kids at home. And they're like, we're sorry, Pat, we got to go and cut to a State of the Union with the president. And I was like, okay. And then I eventually came back the next day, but it was just like, whoa, okay. How did you find your PR person? She was actually a student of mine, Samson. BrittanyLLynn.com. I'll take you to her website right now just so we can go there. BrittanyLLynn.com. Share your story, connect your people, grow your business. She was a student of mine in my accelerator program this past year, and I loved everything that she was doing so much that I hired her. And it's been a wonderful experience so far. Brittany L. Lynn. She did tell me recently that, and actually we're stopping our contract for the moment. It ends at the end of this month, and then I might come back at it later in the year after the election. Because right now, with the election coming up, there's just so much news about that. And that's basically taking most of the airspace. So I'm going to be working with her again likely later. And if there's another story or if my book comes out, like these are the moments where I think using a PR person like Brittany would be amazingly advantageous. This was more of an experimentation to see what it was like, to see if I could even do it. I will say that going live for 216 days straight has definitely helped prepare me for what it's like to go live, because sometimes, a few times, I've been thrown questions that sort of were not planned for. And thankfully, I've been able to think on my feet. And that's something that you have to worry about, obviously, on live television. You might not know what they might say or what topics might be brought up, but you definitely know ahead of time the kinds of things that you want to discuss, because we don't want to waste time. They don't want to waste time, etc. But it is an interesting thing for sure. Smile is another tip if you happen to get on television. Speak slowly, and also sound bites. News stations and just television, and even in videos in general, love sayings and phrases, right? I was supposed to talk about, I did talk recently about preparing your kids for social media after the social dilemma and all that stuff. And again, that's not something I'm an expert in, but that's what we position myself as, somebody who's been working at home with kids who are young, somebody who works in social media. How do I think about social media and how can we prepare as parents? So this was a sort of angle that we were taking. And then I remember specifically before I went live, I wanted to talk about whether or not it made sense to have a person get cut off completely and then introduce social media later, or slowly start to introduce social media to a kid at a younger age and sort of train them along the way. So what do you think is better, cutting a person off completely or slowly training them over time and giving them earlier access to it? So my take is that I don't want to go cold turkey, because there are some things about social media that are absolutely great, right? So here is the phrase that I essentially said. I said, and I wrote this down ahead of time, on a Post-it note. I had a bunch of Post-it notes. Of course, I'm a big Post-it note fan, but I had a Post-it note of this phrase, and it said, I don't recommend going cold turkey, just sharing the most delicious parts of the turkey. And I remember when I said that, the newscaster, I could hear them laugh a little bit in a good way, and like, cool. And that's a memorable phrase, right? So I came up with that ahead of time just to kind of be a soundbite and something that people can remember, because those kinds of things work, right? Sound bites are what newscasters love. These are the shareable moments, so no, I don't want to bring my kid. I don't want to have my kids go cold turkey with social media, but I want to make sure they find the most delicious parts of that turkey, obviously. So here's what I mean by that. And then I talked about specifically the idea that you can find a mentor online. You can have the ability to learn from somebody who you want to perhaps aspire to. You can, those kinds of things, right? Chilled turkey instead of cold turkey. I don't want to go cold turkey. I want to go brined. Anyway, where were we? We were talking about podcasts. Don't discount the fact that podcasts, although it is mostly creator led versus like a news, traditional media, PR sort of corporation kind of led, they can actually be more beneficial. In fact, in terms of traffic, and especially email subscribers, when you could match your story, your angle, your offering, your superpower with a podcaster and a podcast audience that already exists, man, that's a match made in heaven for sure. Excuse me. Love the Post-it notes after finding out many are now using 67% vegan adhesive. Yes, and they are recyclable for sure. The Roamer, speaking of the authority play, if you are featured on Forbes, but then it's picked up by MSN Yahoo, would you include MSN or Yahoo in your featured as section? Yeah, if you can go to the MSN website or the Yahoo website and you happen to be showing up, yeah, you can include that. That's the thing. You want to take eventually these higher authority places, CNN, MSNBC, Entrepreneur, Forbes, MSN, Yahoo, etc. You take or find like a grayed out version of that logo, and then you can pop it in here. Similar to what Brittany does here, right? Like clients featured in MSN, Bloomberg, Glamour, BuzzFeed, New York Times, Entrepreneur, Business Insider, etc. Right? Yeah, she's doing some really cool stuff right now. She just finished up or is in the middle of something called Pitch Fest. Actually, there's Pitch Fest right here. 5-day email challenge, Pitch Fest, to help you land your first media mention. So that's where you want to go if you want to check out how one might be able to do this. Learn from Brittany, BrittanyLLynn.com. I'm wondering if I scared Brittany today. I don't know if she's in here. She's probably not in here right now, but with the title of today's video, like the truth about traditional media. I mean, the truth is it's not going to get you a ton of results right away. Again, this is a long-term play and something that we really need to pay attention to in terms of, okay, well, let's build our authority. Let's get on these sort of smaller local stages, these smaller articles online, and then level up from there. This is like Rob was saying earlier. This is definitely a long-term play for sure. Nadi says, just checked off being a guest on a podcast for the first time, and I met the founder on a community group that I'm a part of. Nice job. I love that, Nadi. That's fantastic. All right, Brian Turkey, what have I missed? Yes. Don't forget the thumbs up. Thank you so much. Cool. Yeah, I mean, news can be a great catalyst for a lot of things for sure. It's a great way to, if you're having trouble, perhaps, for example, getting on other people's podcasts, having specifically the fact that you were on a news show or featured in some high authority place can make it more likely for a person to pay attention to you and to reach out to you and also at least respond to inquiries if they see that you've been featured on those places too. So there's definitely a big play there for sure. So let's talk a little bit about, well, what happens if you happen to land one of these TV spots? How can you best prepare? What's that experience like? And I'll tell you, it's basically the same every single time in terms of mechanically how this works. Sometimes we get a link ahead of time to a Zoom call or a Skype username. It's basically then those two spots only, Zoom or Skype. And then when you log in or you connect with that person ahead of time, they'll tell you a time when you're likely going to go live, and they'll tell you a time when typically they want you to show up, maybe 5-10 minutes ahead of time. And you'll know the topic ahead of time because you've pitched it, obviously, right? So typically what happens is you connect, and then you start hearing the news. Like, you literally start hearing the broadcast as it's happening. And you're like, what's going on? And then eventually somebody comes on. This is the producer. The producer comes on and goes, oh, hey, Pat, thanks for joining us today. The broadcast level comes down. This person comes up. Thank you for coming in. You'll be on in about 3 minutes, and you're going to be speaking with Kelly. I'm like, okay, cool. And then you just kind of wait. You're listening to the broadcast. Typically, you want to have some earbuds in so that you can listen and make sure all your audio inputs are the correct thing that you want. You want the earbuds in or some headphones or something. Earbuds are better because you don't see them typically. But you don't want the sound from your speakers to go and insert into the microphone, and the person who is the producer will likely be able to catch that if there's any problems. But just have some earbuds plugged into your headphone jack, and that way you don't have to worry about echo or anything like that. Thanks, Samson. Appreciate it. Cool. So then what'll happen is you'll just kind of hear the segment come up, and you'll likely get introduced. Oh yeah, here's Pat Flynn today. He's from Smart Passive Income, and he's been online for 10 years plus, and he has some things to share with us about working from home with kids. Pat, how are you today? Thanks for joining us. And then you kind of just go right into it. So it's kind of seamless. It's not like you don't get necessarily a countdown. You will get some notice ahead of time, but it's pretty seamless. And then you just start having conversation there. I typically ask for, if I don't get the name of the person I'll be speaking to ahead of time. That way I can address them and be like, hey, Sandy, thanks for having me on. Or hey, Kelly, thanks for having me on. I'm excited to chat today. And that way there's just a little bit much more of a connection. This is something that will just psychologically help out, not just with you and the viewers to just know there's a connection there, but also with you and the host, the one who's sort of asking you questions. When you can call them by name, it just feels a little bit more personable, if that makes sense. From there, you do the segment, you do the interview, you just do your best to speak clearly. You want to go short and to the point often so that the newscaster can come in and either follow up or ask other questions or something like that. And what's cool about that is they will guide you along the way, obviously. And then typically you'll finish up. The spots that I've done have basically been anywhere between 1 minute and one was like 4 minutes, but it was a different one. It was the one where you saw the clip earlier where the woman was sitting down next to the screen and she called out my Star Wars helmet. And that was really fun. Smile is really important. Sometimes and I've mentioned this before, our default face, our not default to generosity, our default face is typically more of an angry looking face. This is what we call resting beard face, or you can insert your own word for B for what it actually is, but I call it resting beard face because, you know, the beard. So if somebody else is talking and you happen to be on camera, typically your face would potentially look like this. And you look very angry, and we don't want to look very angry. And that's just because you're probably curious or you're listening intently, and when you're listening intently, you're not normally smiling because that's weird in person. But on video, you want to be smiling and nodding along, maybe even more exaggerated than normal. I learned this from Chalene Johnson, who's obviously an amazing personality, the founder of PIO, which is a fitness program, and now a business mentor and coach. She mentors me, and she taught me this, that when you are on television and the other person is talking, you don't want to sit there with RBF. You want to sit there with a smile and an open mouth and nodding a little bit as if you're sort of engaged. So it might look funny, but it actually looks less funny. You know how like the camera adds 15 pounds? Well, the camera also removes 15% of or 50% of weirdness from doing this, right? So it's almost like it's super weird. It feels like I want to slap myself in the face right now. It feels so weird. But again, if you're on TV, you don't want to listen to the newscaster if they're saying something like this. Right? So Pat, insert your own word, beard face. Yes, thank you. What's up, Charles? Good to see you here. Pat, nice natural mead mug. I remember I went to... Bruh. Oops. So I was at my wife's 10-year high school reunion. And I went to the same school as her, so I knew some of the people at their reunion, but she was 2 grades older than me. She was a junior when I was a freshman. And I remember just sitting there, because she was all chatting with her friends and stuff, and I just sat at the table having hors d'oeuvres or the dessert or something. And a guy came up to me, and he was like, "Yo, are you okay?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm fine." He's like, "You look mad, dude. Like, just chill out. We're here to have a good time." And I was like, "What?" Like, I'm having dessert right now, a little Rice Krispie treat with some chocolate. What? And he's like, "You just look upset." And then I thought about it. I was like, wow. I've just kind of been sitting there because I wanted April to have a good time and hang out with her friends. I didn't want to be there and bother her. And I was just sitting at the table. And I guess I was just like, looking all mean and with a mean mug. And I don't know. I was always trying to look up and smile after that point. But yeah, so don't use your RBF, right? Like, this is my happy face. Anyway, what are some other tips? I think another tip is to use your hands to chat a little bit. It also provides a little bit of emphasis. This is what I've learned just being on a stage in general. And again, be short to the point with your answers. And, if you wanted to get into a little bit of a quick story, that can be a nice change as well, especially if it's relevant to the people that you are speaking to with relation to the topic. And then, of course, when you sign off, just say, "Hey, thank you so much for having me," or "I appreciate you." You may not always get a chance to mention your brand name. Like I saw one, I can't remember where I saw it. It might have been like an Onion thing or a joke, but it was a person who was on the news who didn't have a chance to say what they were or who they represented or whatever. And at the end, when they were like signing off, they're like, "Hey, thanks, bye. Follow me at Pat Flynn on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook." It was like really quick like that, and it was super weird. So anyway, you ruined April's class reunion. I did not ruin April's class reunion, GTO. Tennis says, "I feel you. When I concentrate on live streams, I look too serious. Good tips. Thanks, Tennis." It's just one of those things that you pick up after doing it for a while. So I wanted to pass it on to you. So when you get on television or on a news station or on another person's live stream or another person's podcast, well, on a podcast, you can have RBF all day long and people won't know the difference. Although that being said, when you do smile, even if people are just listening to you, people can tell. So maybe there's a way for you to kind of bring something similar even to an audio show, which is kind of an interesting thought, right? But it is true. When you smile, certain things happen. You have less pain when you smile. I remember seeing a study where a person was seeing how long a person could hold their hand in a bucket of ice. And of course, your body wants to remove it after it gets so cold and almost kind of painful. And one group was supposed to do it without smiling, just kind of normal face. And then the other group did it just while smiling. That was literally the only difference. Temperature was the same. All the variables were the same, except they were smiling. And the ones who were smiling were able to keep their hand in the water for 25% longer. And that was a really interesting thing. So when you're in pain, smile the pain away, right? Cool. These are great tips. Thanks, Charles. Appreciate that. Honestly, my favorite type of YouTube vids are news bloopers. Yo, we got into, the other day, a very big news bloopers rabbit hole. So funny. Especially when they don't know they're on camera. There was one where this woman was like with her anchor and she didn't know the camera was on and she was just looking at herself like this. She's like, "I'm so pale." And her friend was like, "We're on." She's like, "And now the weather for Colorado is," and it's just like, she went right into it. It was so funny. Anyway, also know that this happens every single time I've gone on the news. We finish up. It's literally, they're like, "All right, bye." And then it's like, they close the call and you're just like, what just happened? And then you start thinking about it and you're like, oh my gosh, I forgot to say this thing. Or, oh, I should have said it this way. Or, right, I missed something. And it's like, okay, well, sure, maybe, but nobody knows what you thought you were going to say. Nobody knows what was on your Post-it notes or your list of items to share. So it's totally cool. Like, just go with the flow. It's okay. Most people aren't judging you, right? Most people aren't judging you. By the way, my favorite line in Friends is "Ugly baby judges you." If you're a Friends fan, you know what I'm talking about. But don't be so hard on yourself. Be proud that you got on television. Know that eventually you can reach out, probably even later that day. This has happened every single time. Later that day, we just got that clip. We get that clip, download it, and I have them all in a folder. And then I just asked Caleb to put together a reel. And as you saw in that reel that I shared earlier, the speaking reel, plus the news stations, it wasn't just all those news things. It was also clips for me on stage, other authoritative things. Again, the whole purpose of this reel, and this is something that Brittany asked me and my team to do, was, hey, if you want to get on more television spots, create a reel to pitch, right? Something that goes into helping prove that you can do this and you're some sort of good personality or expert on something on television, so that other news stations go, oh, okay, this person seems to be cool on camera, and they seem to know what they're talking about, right? Cool. Do we need to ask for the clip? Typically you do. And if you ask for it, it just ensures that it's going to get to you. Typically it's either a Dropbox file or some other downloadable. Sometimes you'll get a link to where that clip is put on a website, and that's cool because you can immediately share it. Right? You can immediately share it. I've had that happen a few times, but most of the time they just send you the clip directly and then you download it and you can do whatever it is you like with it. Good question. What other questions might you have related to the traditional news and media? By the way, we're going to end about 10 minutes early today. I have to prepare for a giant Q&A session that's happening, a 2-hour Q&A session that's happening today in SPI Pro. If you've never heard of SPI Pro is our premium community within SPI, Smart Passive Income, for existing business owners to connect and have a safe place to get help from each other. If you're literally just starting out in your business career, this is not for you. But if you have started already, you are making a little bit of progress, you want to make more progress, check out SPI Pro, and that's going to be at smartpassiveincome.com/pro. So I have a 2-hour Q&A. The cool thing about the Q&As there is I do a Loom video to answer every single one. So you actually hear me and see me answer your questions, and it's a nice archive for Q&A over time for people who can't come in live. So that'll be a lot of fun. EJ says, do you put all appearances on your website? Great question. I want to pop up another important page that you need to create that is not only great for sharing with other newscasters and places that you can eventually go to, but also just for you and your audience in general. And this is your media and press page. You can call it something different. This is what we just called it. And as you can see here, for press inquiries, please contact Brittany. She's my PR agent, so we have her contact right up front. And then here are some of the television and news station channels that I was in. This is like the full interviews of each of these. I also have included here some YouTube videos where I was featured. For example, this one with video influencers here.
Are you a creator that needs to boost your views and...
Let's see. So this isn't a news station. This is a YouTube channel, but still a very prominent YouTube channel.
Regularity in this.
Literally wearing the same shirt. I had no idea that was the case. Let's see. So in addition to including links to where you've been mentioned on television and video, I scroll down here and you'll see news publications. So when I've been in the news, here's a newspaper clip, which was really nice and authoritative for sure. But of course, some Forbes magazine articles. Let's see which one this one is. Pat Flynn on how leaders can execute on new ideas. SD Voyager. Cool thing about SD Voyager is they actually... So SD Voyager is an online-only publication. And yes, this one's local, obviously, because it's San Diego. But let me show you. This is how these news publications sometimes make more money. You can print out, literally, it's the same article. This stinks, dude. This literally smells like poo-poo. Okay, yuck. Ugh. Ugh. That smelled so bad. I think it was the paper or the ink or something. Whoa. That whiff just was nasty, yo. Anyway, ugh. Okay. Woo. So this was SC Voyager. Open them to a new page. Podcast interviews, including podcast interviews here, is a really smart thing to do too. So podcast interviews I've been on, not all of them, and then blog posts too. This is a page that a lot of people, when they are interested in learning from you and getting pitched by you, or getting pitched by you, sending them this page could be a really quick and easy way for them to go, oh, okay, this person's experienced. Also, if you ever want to get verified on Instagram or Twitter or any of those places, when you do get to that level, they're going to ask for your latest news and when you've been recently featured on the news as well. So this is something that can help. So if you want to check this out, patflynn.com/media-and-press. I'll pop it in the chat for you here in case you want to check that out. And EJ, you can see it. Cool. All right. So yes, this is obviously a collection of things over a period of 10 years, but most of it's happened within the past year. Thanks to, again, I want to give a big shout out and thank you to Brittany L. Lynn. Check her out, Brittany L. Lynn. And scratch and sniff, Jameen, that's just disgusting. Yeah, anyway, I realized that I have to do a little bit more to prepare for this Q&A that's coming up. So we're just going to cut it and end it right there. I don't have much more to say because I just wanted to provide some truth here. The truth of the fact of the matter is, like I said earlier, you have a story that can be shared, and you're not going to get included in these publications or news stations unless you try. You craft a story, you try, you can get help from Brittany if you want, or just come up with something on your own. You can use channels like Harrow to see what inquiries might be coming in that might match with the story and the angles that you have. And the truth of the matter is as well that you're not going to get a huge rush of traffic from this. So if you're doing this specifically to just gain more traffic right away and get tons of exposure, it's not going to work immediately. This is something that you have to work toward over time, maybe starting more local, going more advanced and nationwide or worldwide eventually. Sure, not always likely, but we'll see. But the truth of the matter is it does provide a lot of authority. It does provide you a lot of great clips and things that you can use to expand your authority in your brand. And so the people who do eventually find you, they're going to be more quickly to trust and like you too. Whew. So great job today. Thank you so much, everybody. I appreciate you. Tomorrow, we're going to come in at, let's see, we're going to come in at 7:30 a.m. Pacific. 7:30 a.m. Pacific. And that's 10:30 a.m. Eastern. So 7:30 a.m. Pacific, and we'll pick it up from there. So hey, y'all, thank you so much. I appreciate you. This was a great conversation today. I hope this was helpful. I hope this sort of mini masterclass on traditional media was good. And again, definitely check out my PR person if you need some help from her, BrittanyLLynn.com. Thank you so much, Natty, David, awesome, good stuff. And take care, everybody. I appreciate you. As always, Team Flynn for the win. Oh, and by the way, I would just absolutely be flabbergasted if we didn't come up with even more content like this over time. That very, very specific content, helpful for you. So please make sure you hit that subscribe button below if you haven't already. Glad I caught that, because to me, I'm like, this is a gold mine of information that I'm sharing from 12 years of entrepreneurial experience. And if you're here, there's no reason you shouldn't subscribe. So that's my big pitch for you. Thank you so much for coming in today. I appreciate you. And as always, Team Flynn for the win.
This is the income stream to help you achieve your dream, all while we keep it clean. This is the income stream. It's the kind of show where you can come and go, but then you leave inspired with no fee required. The income stream with Pat Flynn.
That's rank, dude. Whew. Anyway, thanks so much. Appreciate y'all for today. Check out my new reel on Instagram, instagram.com/PatFlynn. Just came out right before this stream. Give it a thumbs up. I'll see you there. Peace out.
Bruh.